Strap in. This is going to be a good one. I will say it's easy to miss stuff, right? When the patch comes out. Wowhead. I mean, you look at Wowhead today. This was not even 24 hours ago that this was posted, and it's not even on the front page. You got to scroll back multiple pages just to see it. So, yeah, I think you guys are going to like this one. Okay, let's take a look. We're going to read this whole interview. This is just a text-based interview from what I could tell. Let's take a look at the actual source of it. Venture Beat. I don't know what this is, honestly, but this is a really interesting interview. So let's get right to it. It's pretty long. I think it's not that long, but it's going to take me a while. So, and then we're going to read the comments at the end. We're going to take a look at some of those comments as well. All right. So 9.2 design goals. How much of the content in patch 9.2 is designed in response to player feedback? One of the design goals was to address pain points that players would traditionally run into a few months in as they began experimenting with alts and switching mains. With class tier sets representing large power gains that players would normally need to farm several weeks to obtain, the creation catalyst system was implemented to help new characters catch up, while also benefiting existing characters' ability to micromanage their sets of gear. So, Ian Hazukosa says, first off, we're adding a ton of new content. So he's talking about 9.2 in general, I assume. But in a lot of the ways, it's carrying forward the philosophies that we pivoted to, in many cases, in 9.1.5, in response to player feedback over the course of Shadowlands. Building a whole new ecosystem, a whole new piece of content from the ground up with those in mind. So, it's questionable. I mean, I still have this sense in my mind that this was always happening. This was always the plan. Frankly, I doubt that they would be able to pivot so severely in the middle of an expansion if this wasn't what they were planning on doing. And there's a lot of stuff in 9.2. Honestly, these systems are a lot deeper than I thought they were going to be. And I would say they're pretty generous. Most of the things are extremely alt sensitive, a lot of account wide stuff. These reps are yeah, we'll get to that. But anyway, we're bringing back class sets. How will players feel 2 months into the patch when they want to switch characters or their friends are coming back and they feel like they're behind with no way to catch up on getting their set pieces? Okay, let's add a system. The sort of thing we previously patched in down the line from the start. We have this creation catalyst that players will be able to unlock using currency a couple months in to target and specifically accelerate the acquisition of set pieces. Build their own sets in a deterministic, non-RNG way. And, a lot of this is just let's just paint every buzzword that everybody has said that's negative about the game into one interview so we could sound like we actually have. I mean, it's sad. It's actually kind of sad to me. But I will say that the Creation Catalyst is probably one of the coolest ideas I've ever heard. I'm more excited about what it might look like in the future. But we'll see. I mean, honestly, it's just so weird, right? Don't you think? How will players feel 2 months into the patch when they want to switch characters? What? What were you switching characters 2 months in the patch for? What are you doing? Or their friends are coming back. They're coming back 2 months in? Are you sure they're friends? I don't know anybody who comes in 2 months into a patch, but okay. I mean, it's good. It's obviously more options, the better, right? But yeah, we've made most of our unlocks account wide, whether it's flying in the zone or access to content. In general, just trying to get ahead of what we have been hearing from players in recent years and taking those lessons to heart and building them into the content from the ground up. So it's probably a good time to talk about it now. So the problem here is yeah, no, they did do a good job. I mean, I can already see that. I think it's gonna benefit me greatly. I don't really play a lot of alts, but I've been really enjoying playing those no spec characters, and they've definitely not designed anything in the game in mind for them. From the get-go in Shadowlands, you cannot even do the first campaign quest because you have to choose a soulbind, and you cannot choose a soulbind without a specialization. So yeah, it's actually has limited you from almost every piece of content. Now, I was able to access Korthia on these characters, but simply by running there. And for some reason, they didn't actually put any requirements on the content in the zone. So you could actually do all the gearing up and the rep stuff, but you couldn't do the campaign stuff or any of the actual quest stuff there. But this time, so far, it seems like I will have full access to that. I was able to log on the no spec character and access the account wide skip and it literally just takes you right there. It just skips like a ton of stuff. Like it's actually it's almost kind of sad, man. Like I have to say, like, I actually feel bad for the game. And days like this, when I'm sitting here recording this type of video, I feel bad for the video game. Think about how much time. I mean, I get it. It's not that compelling or it's not that interesting, but think about all the time that the stuff that gets skipped cost, right? I mean, like, it's not nothing. I don't know. I've been dabbling with different games and creating things, and it's like, yo, even making like 1 hour of content in a game, it takes a lot of work for me. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not making a game like that. You know what I mean? I'm not making a game that has to be delivered to a million people and stay online and not have bugs and crashes and all that stuff. So it's kind of sad. It's actually kind of sad that just everybody and their brother is never gonna do that the first 3 chapters of that campaign again. You skip 3 chapters. It took me I mean, I don't actually know how long it took me. It probably took me like 3 hours to do that. You skip a lot of stuff, and it's partially because that's how they designed it. But it's like kind of sad, man. It's like nobody's gonna do that again, and that's just the world we live in today, man. I eh, the theme of this, what we're going to be talking about today, people just don't really want to play an MMORPG anymore. I don't know what the game's become, but it's not that. It's certainly not what it used to be in that way, and it's sad. It's actually sad. It's not, it's very easy for me to still enjoy the game because I've built these deep, lasting connections. But I just want to talk about this because I don't want to forget to say these things. But it's like, dude, if you want everything to be account wide, you want to skip 3 hours of content on your characters just to get like I mean, why? Like, what's the even point of it? Like, I just I don't really see a point to it. But what my bigger problem is, my bigger concern is that this doesn't stop. This doesn't end here, right? You don't just be like, oh, okay, now that this is made account wide, I'm fine. I'll never feel whatever feelings I had before about this again. The problem is solved. That's not going to happen, right? Because what you get here is then it's like, oh, good. Now that we made that account wide, we should make the whole zone account wide. And so obviously, so just really quick, just anybody who still thinks that's on the table, it can never happen because when you make everything account wide, then it encourages having an army of alts do things that are supposed to be only doable it's so often. And that's, you want to call that time gating, whatever other buzzwords you want to throw out. Regardless, there is a lot of content like that where you can only do something one time or one time in a said period. And then if everything's account wide, that reward just can't exist because then it's requiring you to go and do that or asking you to go and do that multiple times on an army of characters, right? So this is the major problem with account wide, quote unquote. And, I think they handled it pretty well. It seems fine, but my problem is that it's just not going to stop there. Like you should be aware of that it will not stop there. If you're somebody who's felt this, I'm trying to be, courteous to that feeling. I get it, but you should know that you're not going to ever be satisfied. Like if you don't like doing the content at a basic level, and your option isn't don't do it. Like that's just the way I've always handled doing stuff that I don't really want to do more than once. I don't do it. And especially considering the zone is like insanely alt friendly as it is, like, or it's like agnostic, like you don't even need to step foot in there, it seems. And just don't do it, right? But no, so now you force them to change the game to accommodate you who've kind of already admitted that you don't want to do the content that's there. You just want to, not really sure what, just kind of fast track to the rewards. So it's been a long rambling point, but my final point on this topic is that won't stop, right? So then what you do get out of it, you'll want even more and more and more from it. And I can give you an example of this. Okay, so to me, this is like when I like cheat in video games, like not like online video games, but like a single player game or a game that I've created. You know what I mean? I have to be very cautious of how I feel when I'm playing the game because I did this a lot. I was making the Pokemon game, and I'm like, well, what's my least favorite thing about playing Pokemon? Leveling the Pokemon. And I just don't like it, right? And, I could make the same counterpoint I'm making now about, well, like maybe you just don't like Pokemon because leveling the Pokemon is a massive part of the game. And it's entirely valid, right? I don't, I genuinely don't. The only thing I actually like about Pokemon is the battling. That's about it. And like kind of the min maxing, it was not the word, but like the mixing and matching of teams and types and everything. That's really the only thing I actually like. That's why I don't play Pokemon, 80 hours a week like I play WoW. That's why I don't go on Pokemon forums trying to get them to change the game for me. I just made my own game. Luckily, I can do that. But my point here is that once you start building in cheats into the game, you want more and more and more, and then it just kind of dilutes the whole point of the game. So then you've cheated yourself out of the enjoyment of the game. Like you've cheated to get a peak of enjoyment, but you do that so much it just keeps wearing away layers, and then the whole thing collapses. And then you have a game that has basically no purpose. Like and that's going to happen in this game. And I'm just telling you this now because it will happen. 100% chance. If people continue to ask for all these skips and things that, if you look back at early days, that would basically be cheating, right? Like if you could just skip to level 60 in Classic, people would probably have said that's cheating, that's big part of the game back then. Or you can just start at 226 item level, for like 5,000 anima, like a very, very low startup cost. Where people had to work. I mean, especially in season 1, 226 was the highest gear you can get. A lot of people would say that's cheating, right? But the game has set the new level, right? Like the game's like, oh, no, 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 that's not cheating now. Everybody can do that fine. Well, now what? Okay, now we're starting the zone without having to do any of the quests. Every single thing we just did is unlocked on every single one of our characters. That's not cheating, no. That's now fine. Well, oh, you get flying. I did 9 chapters of the campaign. Your whole account has everything that you would want from that. That's not cheating. That's now fine. Where does it stop? That's the scary question. And for me, I could see enjoying the game regardless, but I see this. Like I've lived through this. I know exactly what's going to happen. And it's like it's a freight train just waiting to crash. You know what I mean? It's like I can tell that design is going to eventually fall off the rails. You can't make games like this forever. You can't just keep giving everybody what they want forever because they won't ever stop asking for stuff. And they're asking for stuff that is actually undermining the purpose of the game. Now, so I think Blizzard's real issue here is simply that they just make too many convoluted bullshit systems. Like, honestly, way too much fucking nonsense that nobody really cares about. Um, like this zone is awesome, honestly. Like it sounds weird because I just said that out loud, but it's actually amazing. I just don't really care about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really going to spend any time there on my DK. It's cool. I'll probably try to get the rep, obviously get the campaign done, but like the system there that like, you're this little robot, it kind of like rolls around. I mean, it's cute, but I don't really give a fuck, to be honest. Like I have no interest in doing that. And so typically the way they would get me interested is by attaching player power to it. But because nobody actually wants a reason to play the game and doesn't want to play the game, period, they just removed all that. So now they just probably spent 2 months working on that system, probably had like 100 people testing that system and developing that system, and I literally don't spend any time in it. And there's no reason for me to spend time in it. Yeah, it's like, well, okay, I that just doesn't sound like a good thing to me. But anyway, let's keep going. There's going to be more to talk about. Untested raid bosses. Ian, briefly, okay, I won't read these because this is kind of just them summarizing it. But yeah, this is a really interesting topic. Untested raid bosses. Something that's really fun that we haven't had a chance to do in quite a while is the final 3 bosses of the raid have never been seen in the public realm, and I would recommend that they do this more. We'll see how I feel about the bosses once they're out. Hopefully they won't be a complete mess. But if they are not, then they 100% have my stamp of approval. They should do this with the whole game, if you ask me. It's a whole nother topic. Anyway, they've been thoroughly tested internally, but in the zone full of secrets and mysteries, we want to try to preserve some of the sense of mystery that's been so lacking in this age of data mining and broad knowledge. Fucking genius. So glad to hear that said. Now, when players go into the last section of the raid on the 3rd week of the patch, they're not going to know what awaits them. They'll figure it out. People will write their guides. There will be YouTube videos. That's inevitable. But on those first couple days, it's going to be a truly novel experience. And that is not something that WoW has seen in a long time. And that is awesome. That is so cool to hear that. Beyond that, there are amazing encounters. I think Anduin could be an end boss in most other raid zones. But in this one, he's just a major boss 2/3 of the way through. The team has gone above and beyond with environmental integration on a lot of these encounters. The jailer fight in particular makes impressive use of very unique gameplay space and elements in the room, but anything more I could say would be a spoiler. Now that is cool. I honestly, he basically did just give a spoiler without even having to say that. The jailer fight in particular makes impressive use of very unique gameplay space and elements in their room. So if you haven't seen the data mining, he's right. Let's put it that way. Even with them trying to keep it hidden, there's a lot of assets that have been shown, and you could start to piece the puzzle together. But that fight is probably going to be a game breaking, like a game changing encounter. And I think it's probably also going to have massive, massive lore implications. And like obviously every raid boss does, but this is going to be, you're going to know what's happening after you fight this boss, from what I can tell. But anyway, the concept of there not being a PTR version of these bosses is like, I do that every time. I'll pay fucking more so you can make sure that this comes out good. That's the big question. Will it? I hope it does, because if not, I'm going to be eating my words, and sometimes they're not very tasty. Let's put it that way. But I will say that the concept on paper sounds electric to me. Like I'm very excited about that. Very excited, and I think the PTR and beta in general has become this kind of like glorified demo. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, you can kind of demo our game for free. You know what I mean? It's like, well, are we actually sure that anybody's learning from this? Because, man, there's been times I've gone on the PTR and there's just nobody online doing anything. And there's people like playing it like it's a free version of WoW, like they're doing like ICC and bullshit. Never forget that, man. Me and Siler were trying to do the Brawlers Guild. We were trying to record it, and people were coming. So they added new Brawlers Guild bosses in like one of the patches in the end of Mop or Watt or something like that. And we were trying to go on there and record it because it was a big deal at the time. He made a lot of videos on the Brawlers Guild stuff, and there was people on there doing like rank 1 of the Brawlers Guild. And there was like 3 or 4 people doing that. And we were just trying to get on there and record it, but in the Brawlers Guild, only one person could fight at a time. And I was trying to convince, I'm like, yo, can you just go do this on live and then transfer your character over and then test the new stuff? And the people were like so mad. They were like so upset about it. I'm like, oh, I see what's going on here. You don't actually play this game. You're playing a free version of WoW at the cost of us not being able to test the content we want to test because you're here wasting our time. And that, I don't know. Anyway, more account-wide progression. Here we go. So yeah, this is interesting. The core character-based progression is power progression. It's getting gear, just getting stronger. That central RPG experience, that's part of what we think players are often looking for when they make a new character. They reached a plateau. They're done with their goals on one character. They want to experience the journey again with another. If you're not feeling rewarded by running dungeons and getting item upgrades because you already have it all, that feels like it takes out a big piece of that repeat experience. Yeah, and you see, you had a really good way to not have that problem in 2 expansions ago, and you removed it because of the idiots that you're now listening to, again, told you to do that. So you're literally confirming that the people who asked you to remove the thing that they now want probably shouldn't be listened to. But anyway, if you have to do some content to unlock quests in this area or unlock access to this dungeon or unlock the ability to fly, re-earning those things doesn't feel like a reward when we ask you to do it a second or third time. It just feels like a penalty we inflict, and that's not what rewards should feel like. Okay, so I mean, I get it. Obviously, something like unlocking access to fly definitely doesn't need to be done more than once. But yeah, I don't know. You have big epic quest lines that go all the way through Zereth Mortis and lead to the conclusion of many of the events in Shadowlands, the fate of the jailer, the fate of the Shadowlands as a whole. Awesome quests. Once you've done them, you the player have done them. We don't want to make every character, every alt go through those experiences unless they want to replay them. That's something where we make sure the major unlocks are count-wide. And like I said, fair enough. I think it works out. It's probably going to be fine, but it's just kind of sad to me. It's just almost kind of sad, right? Because genuinely, how like will this content? It's like almost like I feel like a little gluttonous. I think that's the right word. A little gluttonous. We sit here for all these months talking about, lol, there's no content. I mean, genuinely, I think less people believe that now. I really do. That used to be a common complaint, so I always go back to that. But People complained about the length of 9.1, 9.15 as well. And I think they were foolish to do so. This patch probably came out about maybe 2 weeks early, in my opinion, but they have plenty of time to get everything they need to get done still. Like, it's really not even out yet. You know what I mean? All we have is one big element of it, and then the rest hasn't even come out yet. But and then you sit there and then you blast through the shit in the content. Like, they have to give you a force to break from it. Like, think about that, right? That's what time gating is. They know that you're such a fucking ADHD little kid that you can't even be responsible with this content, that if it's there, you're going to spend 12 hours straight and just fucking destroy it. You're going to not read a single quest. You're not even going to pay attention to what is on the screen, and you're just going to steamroll it, and then you're going to have nothing to do for months again. And you're going to be back where you were, complaining about there not being anything to do again, right? And so they put all these checks and balances, all these stops. They put up fucking gates and walls and make it weekly and all this content. It takes time to do these things that you don't have any control over. And then they just make that so you only ever have to do that once, right? Like, so you do that the first time, and that's going to take like 8 weeks total. And then you'll never do that again. I mean, genuinely, let's be serious here. I do this. I do these leveling challenges all the time. The reason I do these leveling challenges is because I feel gluttonous. I feel like after playing this game for 17 years, I have consumed every inch of this game without any remorse. And I feel like I owe it to the game to go back and re-explore some of these areas that I just glossed over, that I flew through, that I did not respect at the time. Give them their due because they're good and they're well made, and I don't respect them. I don't appreciate them when they're there. So tell me, honestly, ask yourself this question. Will you do this content a second time? I think for most, the answer is no. And for me, the answer is probably no. And maybe someday I'll be able to do it. I'm considering this whole no spec character thing. This is kind of fun. It gives me additional ways to find interest in doing content, but it's just that just makes me sad. That it's a little depressing. I'm not even sad is not the right word. It's a little depressing that we can't seem to find ourselves broken out of the cycle where we just say, like, dude, please, I want new stuff so bad, please, please, please. And then they take all this time to design it, and then you do it once and you're like, oh, I don't ever want to do that again. You better make sure my alts don't have to be burdened with this shit that I fucking asked you to make, right? It's kind of depressing. It's almost kind of like, I don't, it's like, it's kind of depressing. Anyway, gameplay beyond power progression. But we understand, and we certainly heard loud and clear from the community, that if we put power that will increase your damage in a dungeon or damage in a raid, this is where it gets good, built behind a system, it now becomes mandatory, whether that's gameplay you enjoy or not. And so having that as something that is for hardcore power gamers, you fucking said hardcore power gamers, having it be optional, but still deep in something that they can take at their own pace. It's something we're trying to do to offer a range of options without pressuring people to play the game in a way they'd rather not. Yo, he said hardcore power gamers. Holy fuck, dude. That's you. You're a hardcore power gamer if you don't want to fucking get this little rolling robot. That makes me crack up, man. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, no, but you know what, man? Yeah, sure thing, man. I remember the first time I heard this, like the opposite of this. There was a chick who used to make WoW videos, guides. Used to make WoW boss guides, and she was very good. And I think she probably still is an influencer for another game. But I remember her talking about why her guild broke up, and they were like a, they would be like a Hall of Fame guild now. Um, and she was like, a lot of people in my guild, they just they can't deal with how much time you have to spend playing the game. Well, what? Like, that's what it means to be hardcore, right? Like, could you imagine? To be fair, this is actually fucking happening now. This is backfiring on me. But could you imagine if, like, a professional athlete, like if LeBron James just was like, dude, you got to nerf the fucking teams. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be asked having to go to fucking practice 7 days a week and be in the gym, 30 hours a week just so I can be the best I can possibly be. I can't. I don't have time for that, man. I got other fucking sports to play. It's like, no, you're choosing to be hardcore, right? Like if you're a hardcore power gamer. Okay, anyway. The min-max mentality. Yeah, okay, this is when it gets really good. So I don't know why it's bolded, but anyway. For a long time, it seems like there was a battle between this sort of min-max mentality. You wanted players to understand that they don't have to max out their characters, but it always felt like, no, people want to max, and if they don't, they feel like they're missing out. Is that the conclusion you came to? I guess that was the question that was asked, which is kind of funny because yeah, it's well said. You wanted players to understand that they don't have to max out their characters. Let me hold your hand, little Timmy. I'll tell you, it's all in your head. The game's not forcing you to. I mean, how many times have we talked about this? You don't have to have a 252 conduit to be able to beat any boss in the game. I promise you. You don't have to. It's not tuned that hard. This is other players putting this pressure on you, and you can't be blaming Blizzard for this, right? So let's see his response. This one's one of the big lessons learned over the course of Shadowlands. Yeah, you live and you learn. It's a trend that is present across gaming in general. The metagaming, figuring out what the metagame is. A new game comes out and people want to know about the tier list for classes or characters. Heaven forbid you pick the wrong one. In Shadowlands, we set out initially to have some options, some rewards that we imagined would just be for hardcore power gamers. If you chase adding a socket to your gear for a fraction of a percent of damage, or upgrading this conduit for a fraction of a percent of damage, we wanted to give that to the people who wanted to go deep on their characters, rather than going broad and playing lots of alts, something to work for some reason to do it. Yeah. So when he puts it that way, it makes it sound like, they were trying to replace the situation with Titan Forging and AP, where they knew that there were people out there who wanted to spend a lot of time playing their characters. But somehow, in those systems, it didn't feel mandatory to do 700 keys a week to get as many chances to get a Titan Forge, huh? Maybe that system was better than people gave it credit for, because instead they put something that honestly should be better. Like, it's completely optional. It's probably less power than Titan Forging. Like, I mean, like, seriously, I'm pretty sure it is. It's certainly less power than the neck, right? The neck was like a big DPS increase every time you leveled it, and in BFA, and people just can't seem to protect themselves. They can't be like, oh, I don't really want to do that content, so I just won't do it. And whatever, who cares? Nobody's. I mean, like, genuinely, like, on it. I really don't know how this is that hard for people. It's so weird to me. Anyway, we often hear feedback that people are upset when they run out of goals and lack the motivation to do anything. So we solved your problem. The problem you're complaining about, we gave you the option, but you're too fucking dumb to know that you're killing yourself doing things you don't even really want to do. Anyway, but what we found, to our initial dismay and horror, the hardcore power gamers are causing horror that is a much broader range of players than we expected saw this. 0.4%, and I don't know Ian to be an exaggerator, but maybe, but I like to believe that he knows what he's saying when he's saying this word. That not even a 0.1% power increase that was behind something that didn't necessarily enjoy doing as absolutely mandatory. How much more? I mean, this is the guy who makes the game, who was literally that fucking guy 15 years ago, right? They were doing shit in the game that nobody else would do. They were breaking the barriers of the game, theory crafting it to death, math above all. He now runs the game, and you hear him saying this. How? It's like bizarro world. It's like we're in some fucking alternate reality. The guy who used to math out used to run a fucking website called Elitist Jerks, where you were not even allowed to post. You were the fucking plebs, and you had to read what the gods of gaming would tell you. You could not make a post. And if you did and you were wrong, you'd be banned from contributing misinformation to the conversation. This motherfucker is telling me that he believes it's hard to figure out how to stop getting people to chase a 0.4% power increase. That is bizarro world. We live in an alternate dimension now. It's crazy. And that's not the outcome we wanted. The game needs to be fun because you're too simple to realize how to have fun in the game yourself. You need to log in and look forward to the adventures you're going to have, the things you'll do with your friends, the stuff you're going to explore, the goals you're going to chase, and not feel like you have a set of chores you have to accomplish before you can play the game the way you want to. As much as possible, we're pivoting away from that and trying to offer true options without power dictating gameplay. And I hope they succeed because, sure, it sounds like a better option. Honestly, sure, go for it. But again, I will tell you right now that if you think that being a hardcore, I mean, another quote, hardcore min maxer, if you think that the best way to solve this is by convincing the game company that makes this game to make your life require less time, then you are not fucking hardcore. You think you are, but you are not. You do not have the drive or the compassion to make this your goal. You're just in it for something else. You're in it for some social pressure or some fucking e-peen bullshit. You're not getting this in the real world. Some fucked up psychology is at work here, okay? This is not normal. If you want to be the best golfer you can be, you will do everything in your power. You'll do everything in your power. You'll spend money, you'll spend time, you'll travel, you'll do anything. This is not what you see in this game. These people will not do anything. And there is a fraction that will. But then they bitch about it, whatever, they're still doing it, you know? Like people in like Method and those guilds, they're doing anything they can. But then the level below them, it's fucking pathetic. It's actually embarrassing and it's of a fart. It's actually like satire. It's like satirical to listen to these people who are just like bitching about the game 24/7. You know what I mean? And they're like, fuck this. This is such bullshit. Why do I have to fucking grind Korthia? It's like, dude, you're competing in the world first? Are you trying to win money? You don't have to do that, man. Like you don't, I promise you. You're going to be you're going to be the 7th guild in the world to clear it instead of the fucking 5th? I doubt it. You know, I fucking doubt it. I really fucking doubt it. And if everybody actually had a spine and they had their goals aligned in this middle upper echelon community, then there would never be this issue because they would agree on what is and what isn't important in these competitions. But they can't fucking do that. And Blizzard won't support it, first of all. So it's also their problem. But like, you ever watch a speed run? You guys, anybody here watch speed running? You ever see that they have categories? Do you know why they have categories? Because some of the shit that you have to do to beat the game as fast as humanly possible, it's not very fun. So that's why they create rule sets for themselves. But they don't do this in WoW. They just play whatever the dumb rule set is that Blizzard creates, and they create this rule set because they think people like playing the game. So let's give them all this different content. You could do this, you can do that. You can get a fucking conduit, you can get a socket, you can put a fucking hat on your head on your little rolling fucking robot. You could do whatever you want. You could do this, you could do none of it. And then the people are like, well, if I put the Pepe on the rolling robot, I could complete the dailies in 0.1% faster. Fuck Blizzard, man. Now I got to go get the goddamn Pepe for my rolling robot for fucking Pakapan or whatever his name is. It's like, it's just bizarro world. It is absolutely insane. I cannot believe we're at this point in the game's history. And borrowed power. Lessons learned. From the artifact system onward, the fact that things were temporary enabled the team to pull out all the stops with them and make them more immediately impactful, deeper, transformative of your gameplay than they ever would have been if they needed to last forever. If they were all going to be additive things for your character. Really well said. I mean, we're jumping from hard topic to hard topic here. But I want to reiterate this statement. He's basically saying that borrowed power can only be as powerful as it is because if they were additive things for your character that were permanent, they could not possibly be this powerful. It would break the fucking game. So again, if you don't understand that, maybe stop. Maybe just chill out. Maybe start thinking a little bit more. But anyway, imagine having all your talents, plus your full artifact weapon, plus Azerite powers, plus covenants. Wow, really well fucking said, even though you spelled Azerite wrong. That's not how you fucking spell that, right? That's a word of a rock. That's a different thing. Azeroth is the planet, it's the name of it. At some point, it would just be complete nonsense. This is the guy. He used to make the oh my god, he used to own the website. Anyway, at the same time, we completely recognize that the part of an RPG, part of progression is the feeling of growth, of moving forward, of gaining powers, and the knowledge that you're going to leave most of all what you've earned behind. It does diminish the sense of accomplishment and growth. These expansions often start with a feeling of loss, which isn't ideal. Rather than getting something new and exciting, you're working to replace the old exciting thing you just lost. That's all stuff we're heatedly discussing, but there's no way to solve it because if you want things to be powerful and they can't stick around, then you have to lose them. And that's just how life works. So we're now trying to convince you to understand that. But we know these hardcore power gamers can't figure it out. So we got to change the whole fundamental scheme of the game. We approach Shadowland systems in a much more structured way that didn't have open ended grinds to them, but still allowed for meaningful additional choice and gameplay depth. Right, and then everybody complained about all those, and we removed them all. Looking back and continuing to look at Covenant abilities and the way they've transformed gameplay, those have been tremendously successful. We're already hearing players saying, "Hey, I hope I can keep invoking spirits forever because I can't imagine playing a druid without this ability." That's a sign of success. Yeah, I agree. They did a great job. The Covenant system is fucking excellent, and even though I resonated with the original design better, this is probably the more fun option, and I agree that it was a good choice. But yeah, the spells are really powerful. I love the theme, and I identify as a Night Fae Druid. That's just how I feel like my character. When I log on, that's what I want it to be. So, best of both worlds. And then this is funny. Cross faction guilds are still a possibility. They're certainly a possibility. We know better than to close the door definitively on almost anything, but we want to be guided by the feedback. If we loosen restrictions and allow the formation of social bonds, there's no way we can ever roll that back. We can't tell a group that's been playing together for some number of months, sorry, we decided this was a mistake. You can't do that anymore. That's funny. But no, he's totally right. If you do that, it's a permanent choice. And not only is that going to impact the group building, but it's going to impact the social part. And I think it needs to happen because the game is it's no secret that the game is no longer gaining subscribers, and that's just you need to do that. You basically double the player base at that point, and we'll see what they do. But I definitely don't think. First of all, I don't really. They should have. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess kind of gets brought up here by the Wowhead author. A player who decides to switch to another faction, linked only through their Battle.net friends, unable to access things like guild chat, repairs, or even important achievements like Hall of Fame. Yeah, you can't get Hall of Fame if you're not in the guild, so kind of a problem. So anyway, let's see some of these comments. There's a couple good ones, but we were almost 37 minutes, not that long, but this is where this one I want to see. What feedback are they waiting for before going through a cross-faction guilds? Like, why are we stifling the ability to play with people to hold on to some antiquated faction restrictions? If you don't want to play with the opposite faction, then don't. That's a choice. But this rigid locking of who can play with who is a relic of old and needs to go. Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what, dude? You're fucking like it's too late now, right? Like we literally just read an entire interview where this guy, I mean, again, this is the guy who used to be the guy who would be who would be doing this shit, right? He knows exactly where he is in this conversation. And you got him on the opposite side of it. That is so fucking bizarre. I just doesn't even, it makes my mind just like, I can't even speak the right words. That's how confusing that is. That this guy who used to be in charge of elitist jerks that would ban me if I typed something about Paladin that they disagreed with is now calling people hardcore power gamers and talking about hardcore min-maxers for getting content like conduits done. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's actually bizarre. You got this dude saying like, yeah, we are willing to change the game this radically just to try to help you help yourself because you don't have like the emotional depth. You don't have like the ability to search your soul and figure out what it is you want from the game, and you don't have the capability of pursuing that without letting without letting peer pressure kind of control your direction. So we're willing to change the game for that. And like I said, it might work, and I think it will. but the tracks will eventually end. You can't keep doing this unless you suddenly just, I mean, it's just not possible, right? Like it's an MMORPG for a reason. So unless you suddenly just remove everything of value from the game and give it all to the character, as soon as they do anything, then it has to, and even at that point, it has to stop. But so like this just keep going. Just I mean whatever, man. How many years do we have left of this? I guess is the question. Is this going to be this constant power struggle here, where players think they run the game and they try to force the game to work the way they want? I mean, how many more years can we do this? Like honestly, before it just blows up. I think it's probably on its last legs. I think we probably have 2 more years of this, and there's going to be there's going to be something major, and I don't know when or what it's going to be, but I think it's going to be like a major, like something major. Like Blizzard's going to have to come out and say like, listen, we've given you fucking everything. This is it. There's nothing left that we can give you. We can't keep sacrificing thousands of hours to make a fucking storyline that spans 8 weeks that you do once. You don't even listen. You don't even read the storyline. You just blitz through it because you think you get 1% power, and you're now going to skip it on every other alt that you ever have, and you're never going to do it again. We can't keep doing this anymore. There's going to be a day where that happens, and I don't know when or what will cause it. But might as well just rush to that. Let's just get there as fast as possible. It might make the game better in the short term. It might make the game more interesting. It might make it easier for me to make videos and have fun doing that. But you're really just kind of crushing the point of the game. And when that eventually gets to the breaking point and Sector 7 plate collapses, there's not going to be there's no going back from that. But anyway, everybody knows that is a non-choice. Enable cross-faction guilds, and you cannot avoid it if you want to do anything. Same like flying. Really good point there. I totally agree. That's one of the things I hate the most about flying, is that it kind of it's too powerful. This would be the same way with cross-faction guilds. There'll be no way. This guy's like, if you don't want to play with the opposite faction, then don't. That's a choice. Yeah, you know what's also a choice? Not worrying about fucking a 0.4% power increases. Again, that's his words. When you're somebody who's not even like a top, like literally not even, you're nothing. You know what I mean? If you're not a Hall of Fame raider, then I don't know why you're worried about like even that level. Even that level is kind of silly. But yeah, it is a choice, but people they don't allow choices to exist. And I don't know how this works in real life for these people because I mean, I live my whole life like this. I only do things I enjoy, and it's worked out well for me. But I I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, but this guy says I would like cross faction guilds because it would mean I can play alliance and still raid with my friends. But the implications are rather big, and right now it doesn't make much sense as lore wise we hate each other with vigor. Well, so I agree it doesn't make much sense to rush into it. I mean, I think it does make sense to do it. If you're doing it for regular pugging, then I think they should do the guild situation too. But it's a very, very big decision. And like Ian said, you can't go back from that. Once you do that, if it works, you're stuck with it, just like flying. I think it's pretty clear to me that there's some decisions that were made in probably the first 5 years of World of Warcraft, like that one, that just didn't really work. And they're still dealing with that. That's why they tried to basically remove flying, because it just doesn't really work. You know what I mean? It doesn't support the systems that the game have. You can't do it in battlegrounds. You can't do it in raids. You can't do it in PvP. You can't really do anything when you're flying. It's literally just traveling across the world that they spend all these hours creating, and you're just skipping. You're just flying right over it. Flying right over it. You know what I mean? And so it's the same thing with a lot of these things that they do. It's like it's probably not a good idea. And they rushed into this decision. They had no real plan for it. You can tell by the Wrath box having shit on it that doesn't even come to the game. Like literally you buy the box, it doesn't even have the feature that's on the box. Pretty clear. So yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. There's probably more comments, but I'm worn out now, man. So I don't know. It's fun every once in a while to just go on a wild rant like that. Honestly, recapping everything I feel about this, like I said, I don't really even care at this point. I can find enjoyment in the game regardless. I just hope that you guys are getting what you want out of this game because it really worries me. I've known a lot of people over the years who have gone from the game, and I don't know what they would say. You know what I mean? Like they played the game at a time when it was simple, when it was very basic. There was only one or two things that you would ever pursue in the game, and they were deep. And if you wanted to pursue them on second characters, that's what you had to do. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to be, if you wanted to play a character at level 80 in Wrath of the Lich King, you had to level that character. There was no boosts. You couldn't pay. You know what I mean? If you wanted to get gear, if you wanted to have the Sons of Hodir shoulders, there was no buy none account. You know what I mean? You had to get that rep. And they were, loosening things like that even back then. But it was still like you had to do the content that was there. And there was some permanence to that. You could know that when you develop that content, it's going to be done by the player. And that makes that a point of interest for the developer. It's like you have to put your best foot forward. But so now that you're doing it like this, where you can say that, well, we'll just phone this in maybe. And then if the story flops, nobody has to worry about ever doing it again. It's just like encouraging everything is bad here. There's nothing good here. Like this doesn't help anybody. It really doesn't. All you're doing is putting in the cheat codes. You keep adding cheat codes to this game. And it might be fun, Every once in a while it's fun to play with a team of level 99 Pokemon. You know what I mean? Every once in a while it's fun to go and have God mode turned on in a game, and just go walk through and break the rules and do whatever the fuck you want. But how long can you play the game with God mode on? Like genuinely, how long could you find yourself enjoying a game where almost nothing has to be worked for? Where even the hardcore are bitching about how hardcore being hardcore is. Where even the people who you're supposed to aspire to, the people who are supposed to be like leaders and respectable people playing the game at the highest level are complaining that they don't like playing the game. When is enough enough? And I do actually, you know what? I do think there was a comment here that I should read. Yeah, this is it. Pretty much confirming that WoW will never improve because they choose to pander to raid loggers and their min-max obsessions, meaning casuals and solo players will never get to enjoy good rewards and power progression because raid loggers cry. Well, they can always buy boost, that is. Farming gold is factually far more efficient than wasting time with that worthless Zareth Morris. Okay. Something tells me that this isn't sustainable because they are losing more casuals by the month to better casual friendly MMOs. It's weird to think. It's a bizarro world, but I'm actually agreeing with the guy talking about casuals. Pretty crazy, man. 2022, man. Thanks for stopping by. Look forward to reading your comments.